And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending when you're receiving this information. My name is Rafael Vasquez Guzman, and this is your show, Chisme is Life. Today we have Dr. Eric Palafox, who is a recent graduate from UC Davis. And we'll get more into conversation about how he got to obtain that PhD, which is very challenging for immigrants and refugees who come to this country without status. But I want to get started on this. Eric, I'll call you Eric only because we've known each other for so long. Eric, thank you for taking the time and coming over and having a conversation where we're going to be chismeando for a while. So thank you for taking the time.
Of course, thank you, Rafael. Thanks for having me. And I always yes, we've known each other for a long time, very, very long time. I won't say how much, but it's been a long time. And yeah, glad to be here. And I love Chisme, so yeah, we can get started.
Definitely. So, one of the things that we want to talk about, or where we want to start this conversation, is simply who is Eric Palafox, as an immigrant or refugee, what category of people you identify as? Because I think you have a little bit of a different perspective in how you got to the U.S. from many other individuals who came in without status originally. So let's get started. Where are you from? And then how did you get to the US?
Thank you, Rafael. Yeah, I guess my name is Eric Palafox. Well, full name Luis Eric Aguirre Palafox. Palafox. And I'm from Mexico. I was born in Puebla, but I was registered in Oaxaca, and most of my early childhood was in Oaxaca. A little bit of Oaxaca, a little bit of Veracruz, a little bit of Ciudad Juarez in Chihuahua. And after that, we moved to the United States when I was 15 years old, and we moved to Santa Rosa. And I guess as a immigrant, yeah, I guess I will consider myself a always a student immigrant. Because when I want, like, ever since I was a little kid, my dad, he always wanted me to have the best education, whatever that means, the best things that the school could offer. And back in the 90s, like late 90s, when I was in elementary school, that was, teaching English. That was one of the main things. It's like, hey, we have English classes now. We offer them as well. And so it was kind of always looking for the good English program for the schools. And like I said, I started in Oaxaca, in Tehuantepec, Oaxaca, with with we have the in the Istmo de Tehuantepec, beautiful region. And from there we moved to Veracruz, to Jalapa, Veracruz, and a little bit of like also Lerdo de Tejada, Veracruz, so the port of not the port city, but it's close to the port of Veracruz. And it was always kind of like just chasing better educational opportunities, better English programs as well. And so from there, my older brother and older sister, they moved to Ciudad Juarez. And 2 years after that, then my mom, my dad, and myself, we moved to Ciudad Juarez. And from there, I was able to get a student visa. And I was every single day. This was let me go back. This was freshman year of high school. Every day I will cross the bridge, the international border bridge, into El Paso in Texas, and I will kind of like go to class in the morning, throughout the day, then come back to Mexico. And I was not the only one. There was also a lot of students from Mexico. Some of them had, visas like myself, like student visa. Some of them were citizens. And so it was always like a kind of like, waiting on the other side of the bridge, waiting for my colleagues, like, my fellow friends as well. And then we'll just cross in like in a group and then just go to school, go, have classes and then come back again as a group. So that was to me at that point, it was like nothing. It was normal for me, to just cross the border every single day and then come back every single day as well. But then the before I started my sophomore year of high school, then that's when we decided to move to the United States, like fully move to the United States. And yeah, I just had a student visa, and we just didn't renew the visa. Um, and so to me, there was no I don't want to say it was an easy transition. It was just, going to visit my other siblings. Oh, because I forgot to mention my siblings that were in Juarez, then they moved to Santa Rosa. So in a sense, we're just following them a little bit.
Hmm.
And then they will move first, then the established roots kind of thing. And then we're like my parents and myself, we will move there. And so that's how I ended up going to Santa Rosa, uh, my sophomore year of high school. And then I finished high school in there. I went to public school, then I went to a private school, and graduated in 2008. And as you know, some of us might remember, that was not a good time for like financially for
Hmm.
the country or for the world. And so I decided to, instead of going to university, four-year university, I decided to stay local, get a job. I had like a part-time job at that point, so I kind of pursue like a more like a full-time job at that point. I was trying to help the family with some finances. And then yeah, so that's when we met. And then that's when I started going to San Francisco Junior College. And and after that, should I continue with the whole story, or
Well,
what do you
no,
think?
I think that it's important that transition from the
Hmm.
public high school to the private high school. You're always looking for something better,
Hmm.
right? What motivated you to shift from a public high school onto a private high school? And can you share with us? Because I think that those individuals who are interested in the migration story appreciate the details that
Hmm.
we are not meant to be people that settle and just become comfortable. As I've always said, we are not here to survive, we are here to succeed, right? And
Hmm.
so, why did you decide to go from a public high school to a private high school? And, how could your parents afford that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Also, there's one of my cats just jumped on me, so don't mind him.
Yep.
Um, yeah, some of the hey, Hunter, don't go there. Sorry, buddy. He has a really sharp claws right now. Uh, yeah, so one of the things that it was interesting too, because it was pretty much my decision this time to go from public to private. It was usually before, it was more like my parents just moved to a new place, so I have to move with them, right? And this time, I don't know, I think there was a little bit of a disconnect in going from the previous, high schools and other schools in Mexico and then El Paso as well. Um, because when I was in El Paso, it was more like I mentioned before, I had a lot of friends who also were coming from Mexico. So we pretty much spoke Spanish most of the time. And yes, it was in El Paso, Texas, but it was like, 80% was like Spanish the whole time.
Mhm.
So I always felt like, I was like, I had a sense of belonging. And then when I went to a public high school, fully, in the United States, massive high school as well. So you had like so many people. It was hard for me to make connections. And yes, I had some friends, here and there, but it was not like a deeper connections. And one of the things is like I became really introverted, like an introvert person, just moving around all the time, kind of like, was a little more reserved. Um, and so I just, it was just wasn't like I was, I don't want to say I was not happy. I was just not, I just didn't feel like I was belonging there. Also, the other thing is that the other thing that happened was that when I moved from Texas to California, I was I needed to take the same classes again because they were not taking some of my classes from Texas, and that was gonna put me behind, like from my other peers as well. And so it was more of like, okay, well, I know I have the skills to take two classes at the same time. And this was like math classes. And I went to my advisor and I was like, hey, I can definitely do this. Can you put me into like two math classes at the same time? And there was a really nasty conversation that happened there, that about not being, like my people not being able to excel in math and like not, being able to succeed, I guess. And I think that was like the turning point for me of like, okay, no, I don't want to stay here. I feel like I don't belong. My peers were okay, but it was like there was no sense of belonging. And also the administration, and by that I mean that person, was kind of like again, not against me in a sense. And so yeah, so that's I think that was the reaching point, and I decided to contact another private school because also in Texas that was also a private school, so I kind of like knew that they do things a little different. So I contacted the private school in Santa Rosa. They looked at my grades, everything, and then they were like, "That should be no problem." And so to me, that was like, okay, well, I definitely need to go to this one. And yeah, so originally I was. Uh, I remember actually my dad didn't want me to do that. And then the day I have to go meet the administration there, I actually went by myself. I like walked to the bus station, and then I got lost. Then I took another bus, and then I just did it myself. And then my parents were like, "Where are you?" And I was like, "I'm at school, come meet me there." And so that's how I started going to that school, and I was able to do take those two math classes together, which was great. That means that I could graduate with my peers, of the same age, and I really liked that a lot. And to be able to afford that, they I was lucky that they gave me a scholarship, and they pretty much paid for, I think it was 80% or 85% of the whole tuition. Because at the time, I think it was almost $1,000 a month.
Mhm.
I think that was back in the day, so I'm sure it's even more nowadays. Um, but it was just because the good grades that I had, and they to me, like, when I went there and they were like, yeah, we can give you a scholarship, it's like, okay, they see the potential. And it was like complete 180 from the previous place, the public school. Not saying, public schools are great as well, but it's just some people are the ones that they try to like, um, I guess, like keep you down, like, or, not, they're trying to not make you fulfill like all your potential kind of thing.
Absolutely. And then again, you finish high school. The
Mhm.
economy was really bad at the moment. People were losing their houses. There
Right.
was not as much employment, so many other issues. And yet, it was the time that you needed to transition into colleges or
Mhm.
universities. And so you decided to attend Santa Rosa Junior College. What was that experience like in regards to, did you feel academically prepared? Were there enough resources? Did you ever consider just leaving college and doing something else?
Yeah, that's well, I mean, I was gonna say, luckily, I had you. You were like, you really helped me a lot at that point in my life. Um, and as I recall too, I was depressed because all the, seeing my peers, seeing all my peers going to, college, like universities, like 4-year universities, and I'm like, I have to stay here and, help my parents, which again, that was fine with me. I wanted to do that, but it was like some part of me of like, oh, I want to, live that 4-year life, four
Mhm.
year college experience kind of thing. Um, but then also in my head, it's like, okay, well, just do community college. Santa Rosa Junior College is a great college and great programs. And it took me forever because I will also, when I started, again, the depression, also the sudden freedom in a sense of just doing many things, being like, have more freedom to take classes that I wanted. And, there was like, okay, if you don't show up, then that's your problem and it's on you. So I'll have to say, I'll have to be 100% honest. Yes, I kind of had a lot of missteps the first year or so. Um, So that's why it kind of also took me a while to graduate or get enough credits to also transfer to a four-year university. But um, yeah, I mean, my experience at San Francisco Junior College was great, great resources. I always felt that I had the support and had all the resources that I needed to succeed. Um, yeah, I think it was a great experience.
And yet you had those challenges, right? First generation, you didn't have an
Mhm.
older sister or an older brother who could tell you, hey, this is your path. This is the class that you need to take for this. That's the class you need to take for that. This is what GE requirements look like, any of that stuff.
Right.
And at the same time, so there's no guidance in a way. And so to a
Mhm.
certain degree, we are kind of figuring it out on our own, right? And if
Exactly.
you're lucky, you find a professor or the janitor or somebody who will be there with you because our parents don't have the knowledge to be able to tell us the way to do it and the way that or the things that we need to avoid. And what was the major that you settled with?
Oh boy. Yeah, it took me forever to also figure out what I wanted to do, because I love to do everything.
Mhm.
And that was the other reason I really enjoy, and I'm also glad that I went to Somerset Junior College because I had to take the general ed class, general education classes. So, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, which helped a lot, but also didn't help because again, I wanted to do everything. I mean, at one point I was like, I want to do anthropology. That sounds amazing. At one point it's like, I want to be an astrophysicist. That sounds amazing. At one point it's like, I'm gonna do German because I love languages.
Yeah.
So I was literally all over the place. But at the end, I decided to do more of like the earth sciences. Because I mean, back in the day, and I think still right now, Central Junior College, it's the Earth and Planetary Science department. So it's astronomy with geology. And so I was taking a lot of geology classes, what two classes that they had for geology and three classes for astronomy. And so that's something that one of the sciences that is like, okay, I really, really like this branch of science. I think I want to stick to it. Um, and yeah, that's kind of like what I decided to do. And I liked it a lot. I think I took all the classes that they offer for that. Um, yeah.
So exploration is good, but I would say with certain limitations, because I do
Hmm.
remember you took German 1 and then you took German 2. For a while
Hmm.
on your own time, you were learning Russian. And then for a moment, right, there were so many pieces to it,
Hmm.
but it's because one, as younger individuals, maybe in high school, middle school, we are often not supported by our parents, not necessarily because they don't want to, but often because they don't know on the importance of doing dual enrollment for exploration, right? You're
Hmm.
in high school, but you take a college class and you determine, well, is this something that really calls my attention, or was it just a passing thought? And so we come on to college and then we're like, I think I'm gonna double major on this and that. And then you're like, no, I don't like that piece. I'm just gonna go over here.
Hmm.
And how many individuals I have met who, again, in 2, 3, 4 years, they change their majors 3, 4, 5 times, right? And so that can be problematic when your mom or your dad says, you've been 3 years at the JC, but Juanita over there is already making $50,000 a year. At least
Hmm.
that's the lie, maybe that her mom is chismeando with everybody in the neighborhood. Um, so when are you going to start contributing to the household, right, as a
Right.
professional? And so it's important for people who are watching this or listening to this that we understand that we as Latinos, Latinas, Latinx, Chicanx, whatever you identify yourself as, that we collaborate, mentor people, and then support our own children if you decide to have your own children in making sure that they will explore careers. One of the differences between the Anglo community, a lot of the time, the middle class anyway, and the Latinx first generation immigrants is that the Anglos take their kids to visit UC Berkeley and UCLA and Stanford and everything else when they are babies as a way of acculturating them, getting them used to the university environment. And then there's a concert, there's an art show, there's this, there's that, and the kids just feel that this is where they belong. And for a lot of us, as first generation immigrants, we go to quinceañeras and bailes and whatever else, but university spaces is not frequently where we find ourselves in. And so it's important for people to understand this. And this is why you, at some point, while you were at Santa Rosa Junior College, you were part of MECHA and you were part of
Mhm.
this student organizations, MECHA being the student organization at Santa Rosa Junior College that brings between 600 and 900 high school students, most of them either immigrants, refugees, or the children of immigrants and refugees, once a year in order to again get them to consider college as an option. Now, as you were in at Santa Rosa Junior College, at what point did you decide that you were going to transfer, and how did you determine which university would be best for you?
Yeah, that's took me a long time to get enough credits to be able to transfer because that was the other thing. Even attending San Francisco Junior College, I was still working, but I was so that means I was taking one or two classes per semester. So it took me a long time to get enough credits to be able to transfer. And I think I always wanted to continue my education. Yeah, I know that I always wanted to get a bachelor's, and probably more than that. And so I always had in my mind, it's like, okay, this is, I'm working towards this goal. It might take a while, but I'm gonna do it eventually. So it was when I guess like last towards the last 2 years or 1 year, because again, it took me for like it took me how many 6 years, 7 years
Mhm.
to be able to have enough credits to actually transfer. So towards the last 2 years, when I was getting ready to be able to transfer, I just I started doing some research on the universities that I could transfer nearby. And I knew I wanted to be also close to Santa Rosa, close to my parents. So that was, out of the question. It was like I need to be in the Bay Area, somewhere in the Bay Area. And I looked into two of them, San Francisco State University and then UC Berkeley. I honestly don't know why. It was just like those two, and like they have to be either one of those two. And I do remember I applied one time, and then I got into San Francisco State University, but then I missed the deadline to apply to UC Berkeley. And so I was like, okay, well, I can stay, here or go to San Francisco State or just wait. I decided to wait. And so the following year, I decided to apply to both of them, and then I ended up getting accepted to both of them. And yeah, and then the only problem was that I applied to UC Berkeley. I applied as a German major because I didn't have enough credits to transfer as a geology major, which is the thing that I really wanted to do. But I didn't want to wait another year to apply. I didn't want to, just mostly for the wait. I didn't want to wait because I knew that if I was not gonna transfer at that point, I was gonna lose steam and just probably, if life happens, it's probably not gonna be. Uh, it will probably be more difficult to apply again and then transfer a year later. So I decided to, apply as a German major, and I actually got accepted as a German major. Um, and then after that, I actually switched into geology once I had like my first orientation.
So this whole process again took multiple years. You started by exploring different careers, partially as you were trying to figure
Mhm.
out yourself and where you belong in society. Um, developed some healthy friendships, I think, while you were at the community college. Again, got involved in community service, all of these pieces. And then you get accepted to UC Berkeley. And one of the pieces that you mentioned there that I think is important and is always something that comes up among our Latino, Latinx community, and that is, do I move far away? Do I stay close by? The pressure that often our parents put on us to stay close or even live at home. Um, and so in your situation, you just happen to also be accepted to what the Chinese have determined to be the most prestigious public university in the planet, UC Berkeley. Did you live at Berkeley or did you stay home or did you move close by?
Yeah, I ended up moving close by. I lived in Emerville with a family friend. I was lucky enough that that he opened his house to me, and I was able to stay with him, a family friend, for um, most of the time I was in Berkeley.
Mhm.
And yeah, the other thing I want to mention is the moving away part is that like I mentioned before, I started going into my first time going into the US was with a student visa. So that was like years ago. At this point, I did not have that visa anymore. So I was undocumented, my parents as well. And so to me, there was like a little fear of like, okay, what if something happens to me? What if something happens to my parents? I'd rather be close, like nearby, and just to make sure that we all supported, like physically there for them. So that was something else that it was in my mind for not moving to the other side of the country, or to Southern California, or just anywhere in the US. But yeah, so I lived in Emerville. I stayed there for most of my time. And then towards the end of my bachelor's, I moved to San Francisco, and I will just commute every single day to just take BART. It's like a 20-minute ride and then just a walk, 15-minute walk to the department. Sometimes I will just like crash at some of my friends who have places who lived in Berkeley. As a geology major, we had labs that will take a long time, and then sometimes we have to like finish them after, and or just studying. We have like a huge room with 100 or more rock samples. So it was more like it's like to study, you need to stay there for a long time. And sometimes it would be easier to just crash at a friend's house because I had to be there in the morning, for example. So again, I was fortunate enough that I also made really good relationships, really good friendships in Berkeley while I was there, and I was able to do that.
And so at some point, your family got used to the fact that you were not living at home,
Hmm.
but you were also not too far away, as you said, in an emergency,
Yep.
or again, that from time to time you would make the trip over and you would visit, because that can also, again, for those individuals who migrated to this country, migration is something that happens over and over again. You literally migrate from one country to another. But in this situation, you migrated from high school on to college, then from the community college to the university, moving a little bit farther away from your parents, but not too far away that, again, you could still visit on a regular
Mhm.
basis. And so you got used to this prestigious university at some point, made new friendships, collaborated with people, and then came the time to graduate. When you found out that you had met all the requirements for graduation, did you take a break or did you decide to continue with your master's?
Yeah, at that point, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Because towards the end of my bachelor's, I was also working part-time at a lab. And it's a lab, the Berkeley Geochronology Center, which is affiliated with UC Berkeley, affiliated with the geology department. And I was working there. I really like, the 529 aspect of it. Um, and I was doing research as well. So I was doing things that I really, really enjoy. So at one point I was like, should I just like, stay here, get like a full-time position, and then, just go on from there. But so one thing is that when I was doing my bachelor's, I was fortunate to have an amazing advisor, undergraduate advisor, Walter Alvarez, who just little little science here, little science talk right here. He's famous. He's famous in Berkeley, famous worldwide, famous as well for being along with his dad Walter and Luis Alvarez. They came up with the Alvarez hypothesis, which is the hypothesis that states that an asteroid or comet was the cause of the demise of the dinosaurs, the non-avian dinosaurs. So he's really famous for that. And I was fortunate enough that to meet him, and he also made me his student. So I was doing research with him, and I was doing really amazing research that obviously he loved, I loved, and I had so much data that at one point the department was like they asked me if I wanted to continue with that research and do a master's. And I guess like at that point I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I love working with Walter. I love working with other collaborators here. I love doing research, and I still was working at the Berkeley Geochronology Center at the same time. And so at that point, it's like, yeah, I'll do a master's. I'll continue my education. It was a 1 year master's, so it was a little accelerated program. And I decided to keep going. And at that point, it was in my head. It was like, okay, it was more of the the momentum that I had going at that point. And it's education was always been important to me. And I thought to myself, okay, you have this momentum going, you have great relationship, with the department, with Walter, with the lab. So just keep going, keep working with them. And so that's why I decided to do a master's after that.
How long did it take you to do the master's?
It was a 1 year program.
Okay.
So well, it's kind of like a year and a half because I graduated and then I started doing the research like the summer, like so 2 weeks after I graduated, it's like I started doing research for the master's. Um, and then after that, the fall semester started, then the spring semester started. And so I just had to take like a lot of classes just to make it instead of 2 years to make it into 1 year, but it was more like a year and a half.
And this is where we now let our audience know that for a while you were fully undocumented,
Hmm.
but
Right.
because DACA has become a thing as of 2012, you now
Right.
have done all your paperwork, met the criteria, and you now have DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, that gives you protection from deportation for 2 years and must be renewed, and it also gives you the opportunity to obtain a work permit. And so you obtained that. It made it, I would say, to a certain degree, easier for you to be able to legally work and study.
Hmm.
But nonetheless, this is all your work. You did your bachelor's, you did your master's. And what did you do after that? Did you go to work? Did you continue with your PhD? What did you choose to do?
Yeah, that's and then just before I answer that, yeah, there was something that you mentioned that yeah, DACA, that was definitely something um that was the extra push that I needed as well. It's more like the sense of security, sense of like I can work legally here. And especially being in the earth sciences, like most of the sciences, it's a lot of government,
Mhm.
funding and a lot of things that you need to be a citizen or you have to have legal status of some sort to be able to do. And so I think that, having DACA, that was definitely the extra push that I needed to, well, first to apply to UC Berkeley, then get my bachelor's, then work at the lab, and then get my master's as well. Because then the other thing, being a geologist or a scientist, you sometimes, depending what kind of work you do have to travel. And that was the other thing to me. If it was like, oh, without status, like, oh my, what's going to happen? Can I travel? Or like, what if something happens? What if I have to go to a state that might not, be so welcoming to immigrants?
Mhm.
So there was a lot of things in my head, a lot of like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to, put myself at risk. And then, like my parents, like they'll be super worried about that as well. So having DACA, that, extra protection, definitely gave me more of the confidence, more of the push that I needed to pursue higher and higher education. But yeah, so I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. But yeah, after my master's, I was working. Actually, during my master's, I was still working at the Berkeley Geochronology Center, and that's when I met another PhD student from UC Davis, and he was doing similar research that I was doing for my master's. And so we interacted at the lab. We talked about research. We talked about our advisors, blah blah. And so he was the one who encouraged me to apply to UC Davis and to apply to his advisor. And yeah, and I decided to well, I was actually a little late to apply to the program because at that point I was still thinking, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna keep working here. Again, I love doing research, and that was like a really good job for me to have. Um, but yeah, at the end, I decided to apply to the PhD program. I was late to the program, but then my future PhD advisor actually called my master's advisor Walter, and they had a chat, and there was like, oh yeah, you should definitely accept him as a student. So it was like that connection of academics going on there, and then that's the reason why I was able to apply late to the program for the applications, and I ended up being accepted. And yeah, and I think like what 4 months, 5 months later, then I moved to Davis to start my PhD at that point. Which again, it was close to home, so that also helped a lot.
It's close to home for sure, not as close as, right, San Francisco or
Yeah.
Berkeley, which is an hour versus like two
Mhm.
hours or so.
2 hours, yeah.
But at the same time, again, it becomes another transition, another migration,
Hmm.
because this is not a
Yeah.
commitment for a year like your master was, or
Right.
your bachelor's once you transition from Santa Rosa Junior College, where it was, for the most part, a 2 year process and you were done.
Hmm.
This is a PhD, and a PhD
Yep.
requires not only the classes, but the research. And I
Hmm.
remember clearly that you and I had a conversation either 2016, 17, that part of the research that you were interested in would require for you to possibly travel to Italy.
Hmm.
And I know that it was a challenge for you to accept the reality that getting advance parole, which is the legal way that you can legally travel outside the country with DACA for humanitarian reasons, either a family member is sick, educational reasons, which is this, or work related reasons. Um, but we didn't feel that it was the right time
Yeah.
to do that. And I know that that presented some challenges, but you moved forward and you chose a different location within the country to do
Hmm.
your research. So perhaps you can tell us about the
Yeah.
focus of your research as you started your PhD. um, and again, tell us about that experience, because again, I don't believe you have any family or close friends that have PhDs at that
Hmm.
time that could mentor you and say, this is what it's going to look like. These are the number of hours you're going to dedicate to it, reading or research.
Hmm.
You again were doing it kind of on your own. Tell us about that
Right.
experience.
Yeah, that was yeah, I like the the whole migration aspect of it because it was definitely a change going from San Francisco. or the San Francisco Bay Area
Mhm.
to Davis, which it's a big city, it's a well medium-sized city, but it's completely different. It was yeah. I like to tell this story really quick of when I moved to Davis, I couldn't sleep for the first month. There was just something that was just like I cannot sleep. Why can I not sleep? Then I realized that in order for me to sleep, I need to have noise.
Mhm.
So like city noises, because I'm so
Yeah.
used to, sirens in the background or, just the bustling of the city. So the only way I could sleep for the first, I don't know, 2 months after I moved was just go on YouTube, put city noises, those like 10-hour videos, and that solved it. So I was like so used to being in the city. So it was a little bit like a cultural shock in a way. Um, but yeah, so like you mentioned, the PhD, it's completely different. And obviously people, it's like, hey, this is a PhD. It's gonna take a lot of work. You have to be disciplined, do this at the right time. And I was like, yeah, in my head, it's like I've done hard work before. I'm used to, overcoming challenges, but I was not ready for this.
Mhm.
That was something that was just I mean, there was also many things that happened that kind of complicated or made things more difficult. So a little bit of background. I started my program in the fall of 2019. Then March 2020, that's when the pandemic started. And so that completely changed PhD for a lot of people, not just myself. But then being someone who was doing research that requires travel, that affected me more. And the research that I started doing pre-pandemic, um, when I started my PhD, it required me to travel to Kansas. And as we know, Kansas, it's mostly a red state. Actually, it is a red state, except
Mhm.
for the tiny little like Kansas City and Lawrence, which is where the university is, the University of Kansas in Lawrence. And those two places are the little blue dots in a sea of red kind of thing. And so my original research, just to explain really quick, I was I was dating rocks that were from Kansas, that they were from 300 million years ago, more or less, when there was a time when there was intensive glaciation going on in the world. We had massive ice sheets over North America, massive ice sheets over the southern part of our planet, which at that point, South America, Africa, Antarctica, Australia, they were all together. So there was massive glaciation going on there. And so my research was trying to figure out the timing of certain events of sea level rising and going down. Because when there's a glaciation, the water, the evaporation, the evaporation from the oceans becomes rain.
Mhm.
If it's too cold, the planet's too cold, then that becomes snow, which over time becomes ice. So you're losing water per se in the oceans. So your sea level goes down globally. But then if there's like a warming period, then the ice melts, that water goes back to the oceans, and then you got sea level rise. And so part of my research was trying to date those periods of sea level up, sea level rising, sea level dropping. And this glaciation happened over millions of years. So it was really interesting. And there was a lot of things happening at that time, like evolution was going crazy. We had the first forest appearing at that time. We got the first amphibians happening as well. So it's like, really a really important period in Earth's history. So in order to know when those things happen, or have a better idea when they happen, then we need to have a better time resolution, what we call. So that was kind of like my research, trying to figure out how old were those sea level rise, sea level drop happening, so be able to do more research. Um, so I started doing that, and that's why I was going to Kansas a lot to collect samples there. Um, it's probably one of the best places in the world to do that. I started that research. Pandemic happened. I couldn't do anything for like almost 2 years. I was doing research like, at home, doing a lot of literature, because that's the thing, like doing a PhD is a lot of reading, like way too much reading. Um, necessary. So I was doing all of that. I was writing. So, I was doing the PhD on a hypothetical of like, this could happen. Maybe this is my hypothesis. This could be my results. But again, without doing the experiments. And so 2 years, after 2 years, I was able to go to Kansas, collect my samples, and I was going to bring them back. Well, I was going to ship them back. And then there was like I think California shut down again because there was another variant of COVID. So we went back into quarantine. So I had to wait like a couple more months for California to open up. And yeah, so the summer, 2 years after my PhD, I had to do 2 years of research in one summer, which was really difficult. I was like barely sleeping, but at that point, it's like I need to do this because, I need to graduate. I don't want to be here forever. Um, and turns out that it was not going to work. So it was going to take way, way longer than we expected. So at that point, I was like, okay, do I just not continue? I'm 2 years in, maybe call it quits, and just be like, take my master's that I have and then get a job, get some money, whatever, or just come up with something else. And at that point, I was fortunate to have two advisors, my Davis advisor and then my Kansas advisor. And I was fortunate enough that, they were like, if you want to continue, we'll help you. We'll come up with something new, some other new research for you to do. But they were clear. It's like it's not going to be easy because now you have less time to do a PhD. And now the other thing is like, well, what if this new thing doesn't work? So I was mentally prepared to be like, okay, this is going to be even harder than before. I have to do science really, really quick. And if it doesn't work, then that doesn't work. At that point, it's like probably, yeah, not finish the PhD. But again, I was still going with that momentum of like, I need to do this. I need to do this. And so long story short, I was able to come out, well, with the help of my advisors, we came up with a new project. I went to Kansas to do the super quick experiments. Yeah, it was like right before Christmas, I remember. I was like, everything was frozen over there. And came back, did the data analysis, and right after Christmas, I had a meeting with my advisors, like, this is the data, this is gonna work or not. And they're like, this looks great. So I switched my project completely. And yeah, it took me what 3 years after that, 4 years after that, and then I graduated. But it was definitely hard.
It's again the reality of immigrants, right?
Hmm.
That we don't just give up,
Right.
right? That we find alternatives, that we collaborate with people, that we, again, there is a purpose and we recognize that there is a purpose. And now you have a PhD,
Hmm.
and we'll talk in a second about what your next steps are. But even while you were working on your PhD, I approached you as one of the over 100 DACA recipients that I've been privileged to work with. And I said, I have an idea. I think it's important for DACA recipients to tell their stories. And so you took me up on the offer and you wrote a chapter to a book that is available now. If you can tell us about the book and then tell us about your experience and why you chose to participate and what parts of your life you chose to share with the community.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, so we wrote a book. It's right here. Let's see. So it's the journey of DACA students living in the United States today. And really proud of this book, and also really proud of my other fellow DACA recipients who also wrote their stories. There are 9 of them, I believe, including mine. Um, Beautiful book. And I mean, to me, it was easy for me to decide if I wanted to be part of this or not. Because I remember, we had some meetings together as a group, and then I remember you saying it's like this could be hard because you have to. Well, first of all, you said you can share whatever you want, but if you want to share this and this and that, it could be some triggering aspects of writing. And so to me, I mean, I was just like, yes, I'll do it 100%. And I think I wanted to do that just to, share my story, but also to hopefully, inspire other people, and just sharing my story out there with someone who, might be able to identify a little bit. All of our stories are completely different. Um, and maybe someone will not identify 100% to every like my life story,
Mhm.
but maybe pieces, it's like, oh, okay, this happened to me as well. And then now what are the outcomes of this, right? So I got this, blah blah. I got the well, my PhD now, which I think it's a cumulative. I mean, it is a cumulative event that happened because of this other event, because this other event, and yeah. So I just wanted to inspire people, um, and just put my story out there. And so yeah, it was easy for me to do that. There were some parts of the book that were a little harder to write. Um, because I explained personally, me, I wrote it chronologically. So from Mexico till that point, which was 2024, I believe. Uh, yeah, January of 2024. And so it's we need to do an update or something like
Mhm.
maybe a couple of years from now. But yeah, even like right now, it's just like wow, okay, 2024, January 2024, Eric had like a lot of it was going through a lot of things as well, and then just reading that right now, it's like okay, well the some of the difficult parts that were going on, I already accomplished that. I overcome those already. So it's kind of like nice to look back and read a little bit of those, like, well, what was going on in my life. And yeah, I just love the book. It's also a really pretty book. So shout out to the person who designed the cover. I know that the butterflies is sort of the represents migration, right?
Mhm.
And I love it. It's available on Amazon if you want to read it. And we also did a bunch of readings, in-person readings, which I also enjoyed doing that a lot. I also, like to thank people who showed up to our readings. Um, and hopefully we can have more of those. I know, like, the political atmosphere is a little harder right now, but hopefully we can do something similar in the near future. And also do like a little update, like 5 years from now or something like that.
Yeah, again, and it's important for people to understand two things before again we continue with your story. But a couple of
Mhm.
things here is one, every one of the people that we feature in this book has a minimum of a bachelor's. Three of you have a master's, and then so far you're the first one with a PhD. And by the time we do the updated version in a couple of years, if all goes well, we'll have somebody with an MD as well. We have people who graduated from places like Sonoma State, people who graduated from Berkeley, people who graduated from Davis, people who graduated from UCLA. And this is just a sample of the many DACA recipients. And it's important for us to also give the disclaimer that, again, although a good number of people were offered the opportunity, not everybody took us on that offer, and that telling the stories of people who got through college and finished their degrees are not the only stories that matter. These were just the group of people who accepted the offer, but the offer originally went out to people who did associates and certificates, and some of them who never went on to the university. And it's important, again, to not pretend that these are the only stories that matter because everybody has to deal with different obstacles. We just ended up with
Mhm.
this group of people. We even talk about doing a second book, which is something that we're considering at this moment. in regards to people who didn't finish their college degrees. And then there's a third book in mind that we've been talking about that possibly will develop in the next couple of years. But again, people who may choose to learn about these different stories of DACA recipients can go to Amazon and get the book. And it's an important opportunity to get to know the stories that go beyond whatever is in social media or television or that the government claims that the immigrants are, right? Criminals and
Mhm.
this and that, but you all are people who have overcome many challenges with many difficulties, and yet you have been able to do certain equivalent levels of the American dream, right? Education being one of them. Um,
Right.
and with that, getting back to your
Mhm.
story, so what is next for Dr. Eric Palafox?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Right now, I feel like I'm still exploring that. Um, I graduated recently in April of this year, and yeah, I've been looking for jobs, looking for something that I can use, my research skills or communication skills as well. Um, I love to teach. I love to, especially when I teach, my field, geology. And so right now I've been applying to teaching positions um, at certain, some colleges and universities around the Bay Area. Because I still want to be in the Bay Area,
Mhm.
still live in San Francisco. Um, so that's what I've been doing so far. Um, and I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but also ideally I would like to do some research with ideally with climate change related things. And that's a huge field right now. And there's many ways that I can, take that and not really sure exactly which direction, but I just know that overall I would like to help a little bit with climate change research. Especially ideally, if I could, pick something specifically, I would like to combine climate change, also combine it with, our community as well. Especially, there's a lot of research going on, climate change related, where they're using different methods of trying to draw CO2 from the atmosphere to, don't make the planet as hot as it is, or as hot as it's gonna get.
Mhm.
And one of the things that they're been doing, many things have been doing, it's doing a lot of research in other countries, tropical countries with a lot of rainfall, which happens to be, Latin America, for example.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of trials going on right now. And to me, it will be important to mix the science, but also making sure that everything is going, like the people are being treated well, that, that it's being done ethically, that it's safe as well, because all of these is just like new territory. And yes, we want to save the planet, but at what cost are we gonna like are we going to um not benefit the people, in from Latin America, for example. And it's not only Latin America, also like Southeast Asia and then African countries as well. But obviously, since I speak Spanish, I will be great to help my community, like my Latin American community as well. So ideally, I would like to mix those two somehow, doing research, helping the community. But no, I don't know. I'll apply to jobs and see what's out there.
I think that it is important, right, that as we talk about climate change caused by
Hmm.
humans, it is so closely related to the work that you were discussing earlier in regards to evaporation and
Hmm.
rain and all of these pieces. And so I think that we are going to continue to have these discussions with you over the next few years, do the second version or the updated version
Hmm.
of this book.
Yeah.
By then, hopefully, you will be doing this teaching and research that again could be very beneficial for everybody, right? People talk about
Hmm.
saving the planet. What I've always said is saving humans, because if it gets so hot that we cannot exist on this planet, the planet will be okay. It will just go
Exactly.
into a glacial situation eventually and
Yeah.
just go dormant for 100 million years maybe, and then it'll give an opportunity to something else. So the
Oh
planet
yeah.
is not
What?
the
Yeah.
issue, is us screwing up and
Exactly.
really creating our own problems that we are
Hmm.
now starting to experience. And of course, we live in the US where we don't experience them at the same level that other people experience. And I think that's what you were
Exactly.
alluding to, that people in third world countries, as they call them, or developing countries,
Mm.
which again, those spaces are the spaces that tend to suffer from us being
Right.
so selfish in this country and overusing plastic, so on and so forth. And so, again, I look forward to future conversations and
Yeah. Me
collaborations
too.
with you. And I wish you the best in, again, obtaining a career, a job that will make you happy, because again, after
Thank you.
so many challenges that you've overcome, only the best is what I hope for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rafael. We really appreciate that.
Definitely. And so, again, here in Chisme's Live, we just get together, we have a conversation, and today we've had the privilege to have now Dr. Eric Palafox. And myself, I am privileged and honored that of all the students that I ever worked with, so far, Eric is my first PhD student. And I say that my first PhD because Eric and I continued to have connection and conversation on a regular basis, but obviously all the work is your own. But I want to thank you again for taking the time and being with us today.
No, yeah, thank you so much, Rafael. I appreciate it. And then, yeah, I mean, obviously you helped me a lot, so thank you so much for that. And the other thing I was want to say, if someone wants to, to talk more, they're happy. You can just send them my contact info. And happy to talk science or, life journeys as well.
Absolutely. Again, we don't have mentors. We
Hmm.
always kind of have to figure it out as first generation immigrants or children of immigrants. And so here we have Eric, who's willing to answer questions and possibly mentor people
Yeah.
who are pursuing a PhD. Thank you, Eric, once again. And to all of y'all, good morning, good afternoon, good evening here at Chisme is Life.